we're going to go ahead and call the Capital Investment Committee meeting for September 12th, 2013 to order. I want to welcome those in the audience today for being here with us and those at home that is watching us remotely. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes for August 7th, 2013.
Motion to approve.
I have a proper motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Proper motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, ayes have it. The minutes are approved as presented. The second order of business is consideration to approve water availability requests for 300 Jeb Stewart Drive. Who will be?
This is exactly as you stated. It's for one SFUE. It's located outside the city limits, but it is within our water district. This would give them permission to build one single-family house on that piece of property, and it has been our policy to approve that in the past. So we recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Proper motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes for the approval. Item 3, consideration of approval water availability request for 311 General NB Forest Drive.
This is the exact same situation, just a different property. It's located outside the city limits, but inside our water district. This would give them approval to build one single-family house on this piece of property, and it's been our policy to recommend approval on these cases.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Proper motion, second, comments?
I want to discuss.
Okay, let's have some discussion.
We have this one SFU, this one SFU. And next month, somebody will could come in next time and want another one SFU here and another one here. First thing you know, we're going to have a neighborhood of everybody on city water, and they're not going to be annexed.
They're actually outside of our urban growth boundary as well. Our utility district is outside of city limits in our UGB. The utility districts are slightly different, so for that reason, we're not planning to annex this area into the city ever in the future, and therefore we're recommending approval. We have infrastructure today in the ground sitting right in front of these vacant lots.
Can we give everybody water that wants it?
Within our utility district, we're planning to be able to give everybody water that wants it.
Everybody at any, whenever they want it.
Yes, inside of our utility district, yes, we're always planning for that utility
All
district.
right, now, what happens to when they want to get on sewer?
Sewer's a different story. Yeah, this one's so far out, they won't. They'll have to comply with our basin plan. And typically, if it's just one SFUE, we typically recommend approval. If it's more than that, we typically start looking at requiring annexation into the city to where they come through our process.
But this one's so far, this one's north of the Grassland Market. This one's never gonna come to us absent, not in any foreseeable future anyway.
That's correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but were we to fail or refuse, then we're looking at other water districts being able to come in.
That is correct. If we were to refuse, they would have that option, but it just doesn't, we have infrastructure right there in the ground to be able to serve them, and we should serve them to be able to generate that revenue.
So if the potential is to accommodate those that in the proximity for water, then we will always be granting that. So that
We
is
will
the
always be
case.
granting that.
Water district lines were drawn long before the UGB law even existed, and were drawn based upon ability to serve, not zoning or anything else. I mean, somebody needs to take water to houses,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
we happen to be, we have parts of the city that are not served by City of Franklin water. That's just, there's a certain amount of disconnect between the water district systems and political lines.
That's absolutely correct.
Motion and proper second.
Yep.
Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 4, consideration of professional service agreement with, as Ms. Margaret exits meeting, with SSR Inc. for the Hunters Bend Elementary School Route to School Project, Safe Route to School Project, preliminary engineering and construction engineering and inspection, City of Franklin contract number 2013-0128, for the amount not to exceed $99,972.52.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, consideration of change order number 3 for the, let's get Ms. Margaret back in here. Consideration of change order number 3 for the TOC Phase 3 Field Hardware Project with Stansell Electric Company, Inc., for a decrease in the amount of $12,146,060.
Move approval.
Second, but it's $12,146.60. Second.
Okay, do we need her in here? I guess
And
not.
this will
Okay.
close out that project officially for a decrease, so we're excited to have that project completed.
We like the decrease, thank you. Item 6, consideration of amendment number 4 to the professional service agreement with CDM Smith, contract number 2011-0037 for the Jackson Lake Dredging Improvement Project in the amount not to exceed $26,600.
Well, first off, I apologize that this project is still continuing to go on, and we are working diligently with Mr. Cross and our contractor to be able to finish this project. And if you'll remember, this board approved us to go and do a bathymetric survey to be able to evaluate the amount of material that was removed from the lake. We've gotten those results. We've had time to analyze them. The one problem that we're having right now is those results are very different from the results that our contractor was able to get as part of the post-survey information. So now we're looking at trying to figure out, well, whose survey's right, and we're going to sit down and try to get the two surveyors on the same page and get them talking to be able to figure out where the discrepancies are, why there's a discrepancy. We also feel that we should go out and do some sampling of the material out there, and what we'll do with this sampling is be able to determine the moisture content as it sits today, and then be able to compare that to the moisture content of the material that was dredged or pre-dredged material. And by looking at those two numbers, it'll allow us to back into the amount of material that was dredged to further validate one of the two surveyors. So this is just additional testing and analysis that'll allow us to be able to resolve this issue and know with confidence exactly how much material has been removed from the lake. Following that information, as you know, we are involved in a lawsuit on this. I would anticipate that at that point, staff would be ready to go into an executive session and discuss the details of where this project stands to try to help facilitate decisions to move it forward. So with that said, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have.
Well, you want a motion first and then?
Yeah, discuss.
I'm gonna make a motion to
Yeah.
approve, but I certainly want to discuss that with you, so.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
open for discussion.
What happens if we don't approve the 26-6 and we go back and I'm assuming that the survey by the dredging company indicated that there was a lot more removed than the survey by, what is it, did CDM do that?
No, it's a subcontractor that did it. It's called the Mapping Network. They did the bathymetric survey for us.
So that's less.
Yes.
So so we're paying by the ton pulling that stuff out? We're paying by the cubic yard pulling that out?
Cubic yard.
Cubic yard. So what happens if we don't do this and we just take the survey that's that was done by the engineer, by the dredging company, what's the difference? How much difference are we talking about?
Yeah, I believe it's around, and Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's around, they're estimating around 28,000 cubic yards removed. We're estimating around 11,000 cubic yards removed, based on our survey, and the contract was to remove around 40,000 cubic yards. So we don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know that Century or Mr. Cross knows for sure. From the owner's perspective, I'm not sure that we know for sure. We're getting two different information from two different registered surveyors. We're both very frustrated with this. This is another means and methods to be able to verify this with confidence. And then I would anticipate as soon as that information's obtained, that we would be able to sit down with Mr. Cross to be able to figure out where do we go from here. And at that point, we would want to sit down as part of the executive session and discuss this in detail with the board, because at that point, I'm hoping that we're all in agreement as to what has been removed from the lake out there.
Oh, that's an unbelievable difference for me, if we're talking about, 28 to 11, and I forget the other, how many zeros were on the other, on both of those right there. But if we don't, whatever, wish to continue to sink money into this thing right here. I mean, we have been fooling around with this, what, for 2 years now?
Yeah.
At least
2 years. I mean, we could have, I mean, they built Boulder Dam in less than that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and given the lawsuit that we currently have, we are looking forward to talking about this in an executive session setting.
Okay.
If we don't have this information, or we don't move forward with this contract, what you could end up with, and maybe this is what you're getting at, is you could end up with still a dispute as to what's been removed from the lake. And if this does go on to legal matters, we're going to need to be able to prove our, we don't want to get into our expert witness versus their expert witness. I'd rather come to a consensus with Mr. Cross as far as what's been removed from that lake and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Are we on the same page with Mr. Cross?
Yes, we've been discussing this, and it's our intention to try to get the two surveyors together to discuss this issue. And this is just another means and methods for us to be able to determine that and validate it.
So what is the test then for 26.6?
So for 26.6, they're going to go out there and take multiple samples of the
Who
different
is?
bags
Yeah.
out there. A geotechnical engineering. It's going to be a subconsultant to CDM Smith. They're going to take those.
So does the money go to CDM Smith then?
No, it goes through them to their subconsultant. There is as part of the scope of services, our contract's with them, so it'll go to them and they'll turn around and pay their subconsultant. But there's $18,400 involved for them to actually go to the site, take all of the different samples. Then they're going to have to run lab results on those, compare them to the pre-dredged material, and be able to put together a recommendation of that, and then project coordination associated with that. And then following those results, we'll share those with the contractor and sit down and try to determine where do we go from here.
My word.
May I make a small suggestion? There's no other way to do that. That's not a suggestion, that's a question. There's no other way to do that. We know the depth of the water, we know the depth of the lake, whatever it was when we started out, we know what it is now. Is there a method to doing something other than continuing to have?
Is that the only way?
To continuing to have the expert check the expert, check the expert.
I would anticipate that this would be the last time we check the expert, as you put it. But no, I don't feel there's any other way. We could have another survey go out there and do the survey, but we feel confident in our surveyor, the mapping network that went out and did this. But there's still a large discrepancy between our survey and their survey, and we feel that we need to validate that information to be able to know 100% with confidence as to what's actually been removed.
Paul, last month, what was that final thing we did? Didn't we talk about this last month and said, this is all we're going to have to do about
Yeah.
this? What was that, the final thing?
That was our survey. We also did not anticipate our survey being that far off from the contractor's survey. And given that, the fact that their survey was around 28,000 cubic yards and ours is 11, that's very far off, and that's a huge difference in pavement. So at this point, I don't know what else to do other than move forward with these samplings to be able to know for sure. And it's going to need to be done by a geotechnical engineer to be able to determine this. And we met with Mr. Cross and we talked about this approach and method as a way to try to be able to be confident about what's happened out there.
May we ask Mr. Cross to step up just a
Mr.
minute?
Cross,
Absolutely.
would you
If
come up
you
to the
would. and-
table?
And you've listened to what we've asked, and you've had the distinct privilege of being involved in this for 2 years, and there's water in the lake. What I'm asking is there another method other than a geotechnical
Engineering report.
engineer?
Well, my fear is, and Paul and I have talked the last few weeks about this, is that this is not, in my opinion, a very ironclad way of determining what was removed from the lake. I think this is an expert that's going to come up with one opinion. The other side's going to go find their expert and come up with another opinion, and then we're just going to be still pointing fingers at each other trying to figure out. I have asked Paul and suggested that possibly we do, there's been 4 surveys done on this lake. There was one done back in '07 or '08. There was a pre-dredge survey done, a post-dredge survey done, and then the last survey that the city had done by Mapping Network. It's been done by 4 different surveyors. The previous 3 all had physical probe muck depths determined in the lake. We do know, according to the pre-dredge survey, there was 53,000 yards of muck in the lake. That's how the volume to be removed was determined. You can stop me anytime.
That was
I'm-
before
That's
you
the
started.
40,000.
The pre-dredge survey.
Before you started, okay.
Based on a lot of research I've done and people I've talked to, they say the only way to really determine what was removed from the lake, there's no science involved in it, is to go back out there, do muck depth probes on a 25-foot grid so that you'll know, you can calculate the volume of muck that's remaining in the lake. And that way, the difference between where you started and what's remaining is what you took out. Sounds like a simple approach, but it's one that I don't think that either side can poke holes in after the fact. If you have one scientist over here saying that this is one thing, another scientist can come say another, and then we're still in this muddled. I mean, that's my fear about spending this money.
Together?
Excuse me?
Could they go out there together and do it, and then you wouldn't have saying, well, I think this, and I think this. If they go together, they'll do it.
The 2 experts.
Yeah.
Well, it's really 2 different processes, though, really.
And what I would offer to you is that the pre-dredge survey was done by the Mapping Network, hired by the contractor to go out there and do that. That's how we determined that there was 45,000 cubic yards
You,
out there.
By
So
you.
we
The
actually,
Aquavac, the sub to me, but yes, I guess. in
we
essence.
actually, in wanting to check the final post-dredge survey, thought it was appropriate to use the same surveyor that did the pre-dredge survey to do the post-dredge surveyor. So that's what we did. And our means and methods to do that was to evaluate where is the top of the muck. And the first time they did do muck depth samples to be able to determine how much is out there, how much do we need to dredge. The second time, they did muck depth samples to be able to determine, to be able to calibrate their sonar equipment. All they did to compare the amount removed was they took the top of the muck depth surfaces, and the difference of those is what's telling us what has been dredged from the lake. I feel very confident in what the Mapping Network has done to be able to determine that, but we still have the problem that it's very different and very far off. And we've had, as Mr. Cross stated, 4 surveys. This is a different approach that will validate, I feel that will validate our Mapping Network survey. And I'm still going to recommend approval of this to be able to know with confidence that we've evaluated this 2 different ways to be able to determine what has been removed. And I truly do hope that this is the last.
I'm sure that you and Century Construction have discussed and discussed and discussed. What if, and I'm only asking, what if the board, what if this committee, and I'm not sure if the committee's gonna agree to this, says to you, we want one more month before we approve this 26,600. See if there's anything you can work out. If you come back and tell us at the end next month it's 26,600 and you need it, does that do anything to you or to the project? And I know it's in litigation, and I'm sure that somebody's looking to be paid. So that's what I'm asking. And, you know, I certainly want to see Jackson Lake disappear from the agenda. Not necessarily disappear, but
I
disappear.
want to see it disappear from the earth.
And I'm curious as to why, if it's 45,000 cubic yards of sediment or muck or whatever, we only removed 11,000. Is that normal?
No, and that's going to be discussed as part of the executive session. And I need to talk, and as soon as we determine the amount removed, we'll sit down with Century and discuss in detail how we're going to resolve this or what we're going to do to resolve this, and then bring it back to an executive session.
So my original question is, more dialogue between the two of you, Century City, what does that do to you?
It does nothing to me. You'll see that you have an email from the church in your inbox right now. The church is not happy with the fact that this project has drug out. I am meeting with them to provide their direct executive board with an update of the project. What I had indicated to them was that I had hoped to have some type of resolution and direction moving forward within the next 45 days. So by putting this off another month, you know, it does add another 30 days to the project and getting answers here. And I would expect that the church, who's already not happy with this, would have an opinion of it.
Well, they were
So,
going to use part of it for infield anyway, weren't they?
yes.
Part of it or all of it?
Use part of it for what, I'm sorry?
The infield, around the parking lot and some of the low spots that they had, they're not going to use it?
Well, our contract says it was supposed to be hauled off.
Okay.
So did you haul it off?
No.
What'd you do with it?
It's still
Still
sitting
back.
in dewatering bags in the laydown area in the rear property of the church. And through this process, I've been communicating a lot with the church. So we asked them, is there something we could do to leave the material there so we wouldn't have to bring 500 dump trucks in and out of their front door? And so we have worked with them and have some agreement with them to leave the material there, but they're ready for it to be either let's finish this agreement or get the dirt gone.
Either haul it or put it, or either haul it or
Spread it
or
out.
spread it.
Yeah. I'm surprised the neighbors are tolerating that
Mhm.
Well,
for
that's
this
the
long,
church, it's not-
church, this
And
long a time.
From where I stand, I don't want to see
Oh.
the material hauled off until we have a chance to get these samples to verify that. If that material gets hauled off, then we're not able to do this means and methods to be able to verify
So
and
that's-
validate.
Can't you measure what you've dug out?
We,
in the bag?
We did do that. There's a shrinkage factor associated with the material as far as when it's dredged, it's got a moisture content to it. It's a certain cubic yardage. They dewater it and it shrinks down to a different cubic yardage. So as it sits today is much less than as it was dredged. So if we were to just go out and survey what's sitting there today, we wouldn't be compensating Mr. Cross appropriately for that. So that's some of the reasoning for going out and doing the testing and be able to determine it.
It's kind of like a biosolids.
Yeah,
And I hope that makes sense.
And I opposite of that, and we've worked very well together, don't get me wrong, the opposite of that is I think it'd be easier to determine what's left in the lake so that you don't have to apply any sort of factor to it, any kind of shrinkage factor to it. So the difference, you started with X and you got X
Yeah.
left, and the difference is what you took out.
That's true.
And it's kind of a simple method, but we would need all the parties involved to agree to some sort of a method. And right now, the two parties on this side don't necessarily agree with this method, that I'm afraid that it's not going to determine, because there's another expert. They can get another expert to come in and tell them just the exact opposite of that. And I'm just afraid it's just going to keep on getting stickier and stickier. The more fingers that get in the pie, the messier it gets.
I guess what I would offer is if we could move it on at least to a work session for further discussion. What I would like to do, and Mr. Cross has been working with us, is get the two surveyors in the room and start talking about this and see if they can resolve it. They're both professional licensed surveyors and should be able to figure out whose method was more accurate and have them jointly make a recommendation to us. And if we're able to do that, then there may not be a need to move forward with this. And we're intending to do that regardless, but I would at least like to move it on to a work session agenda so that if we're not able to resolve it at that level, we would have this ready to go for the sake of the church and trying to bring this project to an end and resolve it. That's my
Well,
recommendation.
unless you get them together in the room, I don't think you're ever gonna resolve it.
Mhm.
But I think if you have them face to face with you all, that would be the way to get it. What were you gonna
Let's
do?
move to the work session.
I'd be willing for it to go to work session, but no favorable, no recommendation from this committee,
Yeah.
up or down. And we'll let 8 of us
Yeah.
not figure it out.
All right, no action or
No action.
no action? Okay, we're just gonna move on to the work.
But I would encourage you to do everything we can to make,
Absolutely.
to work through where we're not spending an additional $26,000 on a consultant. We may spend it on the contract itself and the difference between 11,000 cubic yards and 28,000 cubic yards, but not on a consultant.
And that'll be some information we can have for you too, what the price
Yeah.
difference is.
Yeah,
Certainly
yes.
that makes a
We
huge
can have
difference.
that.
Yes. All right.
Okay, so
Thank
item
you.
6 would just be moved on to the work
Thank you,
session.
Jim.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Item 7, consideration of resolution 2013-62, a resolution awarding the construction contract, contract number 2013-0119 to S&W Contracting Company, Inc., in the amount of $233,626.50, and establish a project contingency in the amount of $20,000 for the Columbia Avenue and Southeast Parkway traffic signals and interconnection installation project.
If you remember, the Planning Commission pulled a bond on January 24th in the amount of $175,000 for this traffic signal that was originally required to be built by the developer. This bond was posted in 2006, and they were not able to complete the project, so it was pulled by the Planning Commission. And at that point in time, city staff moved forward with the final design of it. I'm happy to say that we've now bid that project out, and S&W is the low bid. As part of this resolution, we are asking for a contingency of $20,000 to be used at our discretion with the approval of city engineer, engineering director on how that funding does get spent. And the reason why we're using that approach is there's oftentimes where there's a change with change order that happens, and our street department does amazing work, and they're able to go in there and do the work cheaper, faster than our contractor is. So our request is for a project contingency. If the project contingency is not approved, it would result in us having to come back to this board every time there's a change order and would ultimately delay the installation of the project. The total financial impact will be $38,626.50, and that was budgeted as part of the talks annual budget that has already been approved. And that's really the difference between the bond amount and the actual low bid amount. So I'll open it up to any questions that this board may have.
Take a motion, and
Motion to approve.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Oh.
We need to move this project along as quickly as possible. It's been, what was it, 2 years ago that we got numbers as far as the number of accidents at this intersection with only a Chick-fil-A there to cause cross traffic. It was amazing, the number of accidents that were there. This has been 2 years later. We've been very patient, waiting to call the bond and go through the procedure like the city recommended. But now we're about to have an apartment and condo complex open.
Wait, when is it to open, do you know?
I don't have the exact date. I know
Is it finished?
they're building out there, but I don't have the exact date as to where that's at. I apologize for that.
So when that starts, the traffic is definitely going to be much worse than it is
And there's
now.
something else going up right there across, right.
It's a
beside-
family dentistry building,
Dentistry.
yeah.
Well, whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
gonna create some traffic.
And there is no cut-through where you can go over to the Kroger Shopping Center, so this is gonna be the entrance and egress.
And the good thing
So-
about this project is we can build it pretty quickly. There's no paving. It can happen during the winter months. So we will be, the longest part of it will be ordering the materials for the poles, which takes.
About 2 to 3 months to order the poles.
And this is one of those projects that we all, well, I would say most of us been waiting to happen out there on
And
Columbia.
this was put in the budget already.
Yeah.
You know, because they knew we needed to do this year. So anything we can do to expedite this, I think the city will show that we're concerned about that intersection and try to make it as safe as possible as soon as possible.
And I like the fact that the city staff may be participating in the street department.
Yes.
Okay, that helps.
You know, because
And that happens on a lot of projects. They're wonderful to work
our
with.
city staff is so, I mean, they're great. They can do a lot. I
Mhm.
bet they could do a lot of stuff we bid out. You know, because we've got the expertise here. And so, that's great.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 8, we into our projects status report, street projects, water projects, and stormwater. Item 8 is street projects status report. We have quite a few on here.
I'll start off with one that everybody's interested in. I'm not sure if it's on this list or not. It's the I-65 widening with the Goose Creek interchange. That bid out and opened the 30th of August, and that was awarded to LoJack. Hopefully they'll begin this fall with a scheduled completion in 2016.
2016.
That's the bridge and the
That is,
widening.
that is the interchange and the
840.
widening, the whole shebang, all the way down to 840.
Is that also the little concrete in the middle? Or
Yes, Long
Yes,
Lane. will
yes,
be-
the long lane pier in the middle,
the
yes.
pier, that's what it is,
Mhm.
concrete in the middle, okay.
Hillsborough Road's a good one to note. If you haven't been down Hillsborough Road in a while, it's actually starting to take a little bit of shape now. You can see some curb and gutter in there. They've got some retaining walls up, so we're definitely on schedule, and they're moving pretty quickly on that.
So that 1/3 is scheduled to be completed when? That,
For Hillsborough Road?
yeah.
I believe May of 2014, next May. And I don't see any reason why they shouldn't hit that unless we get some really difficult weather.
And then we'll turn around and dive into the north section of.
That is correct. It's basically scheduled to begin as soon as this one's over.
I've explained to my sons that they will drive through construction the entire time they're in high school.
The entire time.
We're working as hard as we can to keep moving and get them done, get them completed.
But
Now, that may not be true. I do have a freshman. We may get it wrapped up before he's done.
Graduation gift?
But that probably, and I'm not, it shouldn't take as long as, because we had so much more to do on this end down here that with all the rock and all the bluffs and stuff, do you anticipate that 1/3 being as long as?
It'll be fairly close in length of project.
Yeah, the long part about it is the utility coordination, undergrounding all the overhead electric, relocating all the water lines, the sewer
Yeah.
lines, coordinating Atmos.
It's really basically the same process. We don't have a retaining wall or anything like that, but really the retaining wall went in fairly quickly.
The road construction's the easy part.
Well, you don't have a bridge, like the Third Avenue, you know,
Right.
that
Sure.
intersection.
So Third Avenue Extension and Hillsborough Road tying together, you anticipate those being, both of them being completed at the same time so that they function at,
That's correct. Third Avenue should be done just a little bit before Hillsborough Road, so that should be
Oh,
done.
okay.
would work well.
Let's see,
But Carlisle, I was over there today.
Carlisle Lane, of course, they've moved traffic over, opened back up Carlisle Lane, and they're working on the south side of the road. We are trying our best to get that open by Thanksgiving.
Okay,
So hopefully the week of Thanksgiving, people will be driving through there and there'll be a signal operating.
that'll be great.
All right.
Great.
Let's see, we've got Carruthers Parkway South Extension, they're working, moving earth out there. Hopefully they're gonna start on the bridge foundations in the next couple of weeks, so we'll start going vertical with the bridge. Everything's going really well out there right now. And if you've noticed, East Flank Battlefield, we've got the double bituminous surface treatment down, so I mean, it looks like a roadway, looks like a driveway now. If you drive down Columbia Avenue, The signal at Access Road, it's up and running, so that's a couple that are as close to being done as they can without landscaping, so we're waiting a couple more months for landscaping. I think that's probably the only ones,
Anything
unless you have
else
any
on-
questions.
Anything else on street? Otherwise, we go on to water management project status report.
We'll just ask if there's any questions on any of the projects.
11th Avenue.
11th Avenue, we did hold a public meeting on August 15th. The citizens were all in favor of the project and excited about it. We're working to finalize construction plans to be able to bid it out and hopefully be able to have it bid out by November of this year, looking to start sometime soon after that. So we're making good progress with that project.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, item 10, stormwater project update status report.
The only project I'd probably update you on is the Battle Avenue project. They recently did hold a neighborhood meeting to make sure that we were identifying all of the appropriate drainage issues out in the area, up in the Figures Drive area. I will say that we are very close to finalizing that report, and what we'd like to do is bring forward a PSA in the near future. We're just waiting on it from our consultant to start working on a design of the drainage problems up by the storage facility. It'll take a little bit more time to come up with a design and a solution for the area down by the bridge, and we're still working through those final details, but we'll be bringing back a presentation for y'all here in the near future.
Will any of the, you don't need to go into in detail about it, but will any of the homes be affected? I shouldn't say adversely affected, because they're already adversely affected, but a buyout or anything?
That
You know,
will,
we talked
yeah, we're
about
not going to
that.
force that or recommend forcing that in any way, shape, or form, but the reality of it is once we get a design and figure out what it'll take to be able to solve the drainage problem, it may be cheaper or more affordable to be able to just buy out houses. And we'll present all of the options to this board and try to provide the best recommendation and most accurate cost to help facilitate that decision. But the reality of it is, to be able to solve that problem out there, we may be looking at a major project that exceeds the cost of the houses out there, and we're working on that.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
No second.
Thank you, second.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.